I actually only know 3 songs. America the Beautiful, Happy Birthday, and Goldfinger.
That's all right, buddy.
No, come on, guys. We were going to sing a happy song. Let's sing a happy song. Come on. Play Goldfinger.
We don't know the words to that.
Oh, come on. You knew it when you were kids. It'll cheer you up. Come on.
Goldfinger is the man with the Midas touch. He's the man with the Midas touch. A spider's touch. A spider's touch.
Such a cold finger.
That is ridiculous.
Oh, come on, sing it.
Such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin.
That's it.
But don't go in.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin. You feel for a golden girl knows when he's kissed her, it's the kiss of death from Mr. Goldfinger. Pretty girl, beware of this heart of gold. This heart is cold.
Hey 007 fans, welcome to my latest James Bond review as I continue my look through the entire franchise and the Sean Connery era rolls on with my review of Goldfinger, the third Bond film from 1964. You can of course find my reviews of the previous 2 movies up on the channel now, so check those out if you haven't already. So I'll get straight into the plot of the movie. It's quite simple really. The plot is that Bond is tasked with tailing bullion dealer Erolic Goldfinger. Through various encounters, the agent slowly learns Goldfinger's elaborate and maniacal plan to steal gold bullions from Fort Knox. Well, I never. Goldfinger was the franchise's move from slow burn thriller to a more action-packed blockbuster. It's seen as one of the first movies of its kind. The film steps up the tongue-in-cheek comic factor. The title villain is more devious and ambitious than ever, with a more cerebral playboy feel to him. The shift led to up-and-coming director Guy Hamilton taking over from Terence Young, who had a pay dispute and decided to direct another movie. Hamilton would fit right in and go on to direct 4 Bond movies in total. The director had a positive experience and was very clear on the ideas of the right formula.
Chubby Broccoli, who's a very old friend of mine, he said, "How would you like to make Goldfinger?" And I said, "I would absolutely love to, because I have a very clear idea of what I would like to do and how to go." And it was a very happy experience. Everybody thinks there is a formula, and I don't think there is. We've had many imitators. The normal history of series is that they get worse and worse. The reason being is that the people who make them become fat, rich, and lazy. There may be a bit of fat and there may be a bit of riches around, but the one thing that has made Bond survive is that anybody who has anything to do with it is not lazy. We do very complicated stunts. Many people have said, well, you could do that stunt with a model. That is totally true. We could do it with a model and it would be much, much cheaper. But we have a deep conviction that one of the excitements if you go and see a Bond picture and you see a stunt that happens to amuse you or impress you, what impresses you is that you know that wasn't a model. That was for real. The basic plots of all Bond pictures are highly sophisticated, but you must tell it in international terms. Adventure, excitement, pretty girls, laughs, thrills, suspense, all part of our youth, all part of something that, to a large extent, the cinema has lost. We try to put those things back. Inevitably, most of the scenes we write for James Bond are situations that we have been in ourselves, but where I neither had the nerve to do, or I didn't think up until the next day what I should have done. And that is a real enormous pleasure. I've been arrested by the Russians. I have been I spent a lot of nights in a lot of jails. I had a fairly complicated war. None of it did I do James Bondian things, and I now say, but taking myself back to that situation, if I had been a genius, such as James Bond is, and as courageous as James Bond, and as bright as James Bond, this is what I ought to have done, and here we've got the situation. The war would have been over much quicker if James Bond had been in charge.
Hamilton was originally offered Dr. No, turning that one down. His other films besides the 4 Bond movies include An Inspector Calls, Funeral in Berlin starring Michael Caine, and The Mirror Cracked from 1980. The film lays down many of the trademarks which future Bond films would try to recapture. German actor Gert Frobe skillfully plays the title villain as a more egotistical but cunning playboy, doing a fine job of selling both Goldfinger's glee when pulling off a scheme and his frustration when being taken down a peg. Much of the film's fun comes with the sparring sessions between Goldfinger and Bond, with both drawing pleasure from the encounters. Even Bond can't help but be impressed at Goldfinger's master plan.
$15 billion in gold bullion weighs 10,500 tons. 60 men would take 12 days to load it onto 200 trucks. Now, at the most, you're going to have 2 hours before the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines move in and make you put it back.
Who mentioned anything about removing it?
You plan to break into the world's largest bank, but not to steal anything. Why?
Go on, Mr. Bond.
Mr. Ling, the red Chinese agent at the factory, he's a specialist in nuclear fission. But of course, his government's given you a bomb.
I prefer to call it an atomic device. It's small, but particularly dirty.
Cobalt and iodine?
Precisely.
Well, if you explode it in Fort Knox, the entire gold supply of the United States will be radioactive for 57 years.
58 to be exact.
I apologize, Goldfinger. It's an inspired deal. They get what they want, economic chaos in the West, and the value of your gold increases many times.
I conservatively estimate 10 times.
Brilliant.
The invisible nerve gas was a cool add-on to Operation Grand Slam, as it's known in the film. Goldfinger's scheme upped the scale of future Bond films, with multiple villains hatching world-conquering plans. Other playful spars between 007 and his foe includes Bond blackmailing Goldfinger during a routine card game scheme in a nicely shot sequence in Miami.
Miss?
And would you... That's Mr. Goldfinger's suite.
Yes, I know.
He's holding on to the 6 of spades, so I guess he thinks you want it. That last draw was the 8 of hearts. Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
Come on, come on. Ah, that's more like it.
What's your name?
Jill.
Jill who?
Jill Masterson.
Tell me, Jill. Why does he do it?
He likes to win.
Why do you do it?
He pays me.
Is that all he pays you for?
And for being seen with him.
Just seen?
Just seen.
I'm so glad. Now hear this, Goldfinger. Your luck has just changed. I doubt very much if the Miami Beach Police would take kindly to what you're doing. Nod your head if you agree. Nod. Good. Now start losing, Goldfinger. Shall we say, $10,000? No, let's be generous. Let's make it 15,000.
Well, I can see this is really my day. Jen.
Over and out. That should keep him occupied for quite some time.
This move backfires on Bond. After going to bed with Jill, 007 is knocked out by a mystery man, more on that later. Upon awaking, he finds Jill has been killed via the creative method of being covered by gold paint, leaving Goldfinger's calling card. This is a statement and one of the most iconic scenes of the film. The Golden Lady was played by Shirley Eaton, who appeared in a number of light-hearted British films, and in 1999 released a best-selling autobiography titled Golden Girl. Bond is stunned, and a miffed M almost boots him off the case. It's good to see James slip up from time to time. It also raises the stakes. In a way, it was more of an ego-driven move by Bond, that approach in Miami. His next move is to set up a round of golf with the baddie, up in the mind games with a stolen Nazi par of gold. This could be an in-joke, since Fraub was a real-life member of the Nazi party. This is about as exciting as golf gets on screen.
You didn't come here to play golf. In 1940 smelt from the Wegener foundry at Essen.
Part of a smelt of 600.
They vanished in 1944.
When the Nazis were on the run.
And you have access to more?
Yes, from the same source.
Rules of golf?
But of course. Oh, bad luck, you're in the rough.
No, it's not. He plays a Schlesinger 1.
Strict rules of golf, Goldfinger. 5 minutes or almost up. The lost ball will cost you stroke and distance.
If that's his original ball, I'm Arnold Palmer.
It isn't.
How do you know?
I'm standing on it.
Why, you crafty old...
Leave it.
The ball you found, sir?
Yes, Schlesinger 7. Let's have a little fun with Mr. Goldfinger.
Did you switch him, sir?
Uh-huh.
Then we've got him.
If he doesn't notice a switch.
It's your honor, sir.
It's all right. Yeah. You win, Goldfinger.
It seems I'm too good for you.
You play a Schlesinger 1, don't you?
Yes, why?
This is a Schlesinger 7. Here's my Penfold hearts. Well, you must have played the wrong ball somewhere on the 18th fairway. We are playing strict rules, so I'm afraid you lose the hole and the match.
Goldfinger's imposing bodyguard Oddjob, played by Toshiyuki Sugata, better known before this film as an Olympic weightlifter and wrestler. He would win a silver medal in weightlifting at the 1948 Summer Olympics in London, as well as almost being impervious to pain. Oddjob's gimmick in the movie was that he could mysteriously chuck his hat at someone and the hat would kill them. An example that he showed off to Bond when he took off a statue's head in one sequence. So this became a bit of a trademark in the Bond films over the year, this gimmick of a really odd but tough bodyguard backing up the main villain of the film. And yes, because he's Asian, there's somewhat of a stereotype at play in this. But there's no question about it, Oddjob is very effective in the film. He has some memorable scenes opposite Bond. And I've got to say, for a non-actor at the time, this was his first film role. I think he does a good job in the film and definitely stands out as a threat to Bond. Another thing I enjoy is that Bond ultimately has to find another way to win against Oddjob because he can't match up to him physically, which is quite rare.
Yours.
In a twist, the main Bond girl of the film was actually another adversary for Bond, another hurdle he had to overcome, and that was the colourfully named Pussy Galore, played by British actress Honor Blackman. So Pussy Galore started off the tradition of Bond girls with names that were double entendre, something the actress had much fun with herself, knowing how sensitive people were to the name. She would bring it up as much as possible during interviews. Honor Blackman was cast because of her role as Kathy Gale in the Avengers TV show, and this was where she received martial arts training, which led to her being a much more tougher and feisty foe for Bond during Goldfinger.
Sorry, Mrs. Peel.
My pleasure.
I see it, but what does it do?
This.
Feeling more cooperative?
No, I feel positively stubborn.
You've done a lot of damage.
Oh, Mrs. Peel. Now, where have you been?
Chasing an unidentified object. That's the vernacular, isn't it?
Fight it, Mrs. Peel. We're inseparable.
Pussy is Goldfinger's personal pilot and the leader of an all-female team of pilots known as Pussy Galore's Flying Circus. It is heavily applied that the character is a lesbian. Suggestive line about she doesn't play in that lane, thwarting Bond's flirtation. So pretty progressive, you gotta say, for a 60s film to have a lesbian character, even though it's only really implied. But then, of course, they let themselves down because by the end of the film, Bond's charms are so powerful that he switches a lesbian. Galore is probably the best Bond girl up to this point in the franchise, and Honor Blackman had a pretty solid career overall in film and TV. In other movies she appeared in Jason and the Argonauts, Life at the Top, A Night to Remember, The Cat and the Canary, Bridget Jones's Diaries, TV, the likes of The Saints, Columbo, Murder on the Orient Express, Doctor Who, and in the sitcom The Other Hand. Maybe the pinnacle of the movie when it comes to the Bond Goldfinger exchanges is this wonderfully tense, inventive scene between the two of them after Bond has been captured and Goldfinger is demonstrating his brand new laser beam. Peter Bradshaw once said in The Guardian when the film was reissued in cinemas in 2012, he speculated that maybe the sexism from Bond earlier in the film was gonna come back and bite him in the butt as the laser beam's heading towards his manhood. But this is such a great, tense, fun scene between the pair of them with one of the greatest villain's lines in reply to Bond ever. It really demonstrates why Connery was such a good Bond, because even though you knew he was going to get out of it somehow, just the way he sells the whole conflict and how scared he is so good. The acting from both men is great in this scene.
I do have a new toy, but considerably more practical. You are looking at an industrial laser, which emits an extraordinary light not to be found in nature. It can project a spot on the moon, or at closer range, cut through solid metal. I will show you. This is gold, Mr. Bond. All my life I've been in love with its color, its brilliance, its divine heaviness. I welcome any enterprise that will increase my stock, which is considerable.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last. The purpose of our two previous encounters is now very clear to me. I do not intend to be distracted by another. Good night, Mr. Bond.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. There is nothing you can talk to me about that I don't already know.
You're forgetting one thing. If I fail to report, 008 replaces me.
I trust he will be more successful.
Well, he knows what I know.
You know nothing, Mr. Bond.
Operation Grand Slam, for instance.
Words you may have overheard, which cannot possibly have any significance to you or anyone in your organization.
Can you afford to take that chance?
Cisco and Ebert on a Bond special discuss some of the fun gadgets of the franchise, including the one seen in Goldfinger. So you have the debut of the Aston Martin in this film, a really cool car with a cool gadget built in, and they also discuss why they believe Connery is the best and only Bond, at least up to that point in the 80s.
Pictures. Remember that Aston Martin that he had?
Yeah.
And he knew
DB5,
that if he pushed that button, you know, that the other seat would eject.
Right.
Well, what they've done in all the pictures is they have the scene right at the beginning where they set off what I would call, or where they plant depth bombs, in a sense, or time bombs, because these toys are demonstrated to Bond, and then we know that half an hour later, or an hour later, an hour and a half later, he's going to pull out that magic cigarette lighter and wipe the villain out, and so we wait for those things, and all the gimmicks and toys and science fiction kind of effects are lots of fun.
Connery is smooth and strong, a man's man and a woman's man. Lazenby is a non-entity by comparison. He doesn't cut through the camera at all. All he is now is an answer to a trivia question. As for Roger Moore, he's too prissy, too supercilious, too too smug for my taste. I think most men find him to be sort of a fop and a dandy, and I think he's maybe too pretty to be attractive to women. He just isn't rugged enough to convince me that he's a secret agent. Let me put it another way. In his chase scenes, I don't think Roger Moore ever wants to get his nice suit jacket dirty. But I think Sean Connery does. He likes being scruffy and elegant, brave and fashionable. He likes that dirt on that great tuxedo. He could kill and make love in the same afternoon. He's James Bond. Roger Moore is not.
I agree with you on Sean Connery. There will only be one Sean Connery, and he made the role in the first place, and we still identify with him. I think if Robert De Niro went on to All in the Family, people would still miss Carol O'Connor as Archie Bunker. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
On the other hand, I think you're being too hard on Roger Moore. I think when I first saw him, I said, well, he's not Sean Connery. I don't see him as James Bond.
Yeah.
He's growing into the role, and also, the early Bond pictures were set closer to the earth, closer to reality, and the later Roger Moore Bond pictures have all of these special effects around them in such a way that I think he has to be kind of distant. So it's kind of one of the jokes is that his tuxedo never gets rumpled. So I think Moore is getting better, and I would look forward to the next Moore picture, while still agreeing that Sean Connery is the first and probably only in our hearts James Bond.
Okay, and I think it's because I think he plays a tougher guy, and I think that's what some of this world requires. That's what I think.
The lead up to the film's grand finale in Fort Knox is very thrilling, and the final big set piece of the film just looks spectacular. Minutes left of the movie by the time we get to this section of the film, which means the pacing has been spot on for the movie. Watching the plans start to fall into place is a thing of beauty. It's a lot of fun.
Ready for Rockabye Baby. Commence spray on countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 0.
The highlight once inside Fort Knox is probably the great fight between Bond and Oddjob, where Bond finally has to come up with a creative way to defeat him in time to save himself from being blown up. This is a very well done, if slightly cartoony scene.
Goodbye, Mr. Bond.
When the plan goes wrong and the army come in, Goldfinger manages to weasel his way out by disguising himself as a general and escaping the scene. However, there of course has to be one final battle between Bond and Goldfinger, which happens later on a private jet.
I'm glad to have you aboard, Mr. Bond.
Well, congratulations on your promotion, Goldfinger. Are you having lunch at the White House, too?
In 2 hours, I shall be in Cuba. And you have interfered with my plans for the last time, Mr. Bond.
It's very dangerous to fire guns in planes. I even had to warn Pussy about it. By the way, where is she?
I will deal with her later. At the moment, she's where she ought to be, at the controls.
A fitting death for a great villain and a decent ending to the most memorable Bond film up to this point. Goldfinger setting a new standard for the movies moving forward. It was a very successful Bond. The film premiered on the 17th of September 1964. It cost $3 million, which was double the previous two Bonds, but it took a staggering $125 million, making the gamble pay off. The highest grossing Bond film to date, became the first Bond to win an Oscar, which was for Best Sound Editing. In 1999 it was ranked number 70 on the BFI Top 100 British Films list. Fun fact, it wasn't originally going to be the third Bond film. The third Bond film was going to be On Her Majesty's Secret Service. One of the producers had written a script when filming was wrapping From Russia with Love, but the trouble was they needed to film stuff in Switzerland for that movie, and there was no way of making the production date to have the film finished in time. They then considered Thunderball, but Thunderball was tied up in court over the rights to it, so that's when they turned to Goldfinger. Of course, On Her Majesty's Secret Service wouldn't be a Connery Bond at all. That was the one and only film that George Lazenby did as Bond, so more on that in a future episode. As well as having all the great things which a good Bond film should have, it also has one of the classic one-liners.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
Overall, I'm going to give the movie 8.5 out of 10. Again, it suffers from one or two dated scenes which are a bit cringe. There's a couple of moments which don't quite hit me as hard as maybe they should, but overall it's a very memorable film. Very important because it is the first of its kind in some ways, the first blockbuster, and a smooth transition from a more entertainment-based Bond-style movie. Hugely entertaining, and it sets so many new standards for the franchise. Sort of set a standard for is with the main thing, which is so iconic and powerful, with the iconic voice of Shirley Bassey, who went on to do 2 other Bond themes, so 3 Bond themes in total, and her powerful, almost very feminist style is really a significant signature on these movies. But this was the first really unforgettable theme. The soundtrack topped the Billboard 200 and reached 14th place in the UK album charts. The single was a big hit as well. It got to number 8 in the Billboard Hot 100 and was 21st in the UK charts. So this is where the grand tradition of the Bond thing being almost like a character itself in the movie started, and its legacy has lasted throughout the years. So there's only one way to end, and that is with the classic Goldfinger theme, sung so brilliantly by Shirley Bassey. Look forward soon to my review of the next Bond film, Thunderball. Like and subscribe as always, and let me know what you think of Goldfinger. See you again soon, guys.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin. You feel for a golden girl knows when he's kissed her, it's the kiss of death from Mr. Goldfinger. Pretty girl, beware of this heart of gold. This heart is cold. He will pour in your ear, but his lies can't disguise what you fear. For a golden girl knows when he's kissed her, it's the kiss of death from Mr. Goldfinger. Pretty girl,